Hello everybody, and welcome to Star Wars Battlefront 2 from 2017. I know many players out there hate the version of 2017. For a long time I also was one of those guys, but this game managed the impossible transition from the worst and most hated game ever to a really good Star Wars game. In this video I'm sharing the most important things I have learned in my 70 hours in this game. The first tip is basically who should play this game. I would say every Star Wars fan who also likes shooters and some arcade flying. The single player is for me a must play. It gives you not only a nice 5-hour long story, but also an unbelievable amount of lore references and epic moments. The multiplayer side is a little bit rough for new players. It offers 10 different modes and many maps, but since the game only has a bad matchmaking system, it's sometimes very hard to find a round of a certain game mode. Also, since the game has a leveling system, the first hours can be very frustrating, so expect that in the PvP side of the multiplayer, other players will have 20% more damage output and maybe even more life. Which leads me into my next tip. I can recommend to every new player to start the multiplayer experience in the co-op mod. That way you don't have to fight high level players and you get much more experience compared to other game modes. So that way you can catch up a little bit without the pain of losing all the time. Sadly, that mode doesn't include starfighters. For them you have to suffer through PvP. But to ease the suffering a little bit, tip number 3 is about the best time to gain experience. The game offers special events during the week. For example, every Wednesday there's a triple XP event and also a double XP event on every Saturday and Sunday, which makes those the best days to level up your soldiers. Of course, the fast respawn time on Monday and the lower battle point cost for special units on Friday is also fun, but not so useful for new players. Another flaw of the game is that it doesn't tell you many things, so the next tips are just about that. For example, in the game mode Supremacy you have to board the enemy ship at some point, but the game doesn't tell you how to enter the troop transporter. For that you have to find the right spot and press G. The next tip is about dodging. There are many situations where you have to get out of the way. Maybe an incoming grenade, an unfriendly Wookiee, or maybe a lightsaber. To get out of the way, just press Alt and the direction key and you will roll into safety. And maybe even into tip number 6. It's better to manual vent your weapons just before they overheat than to try your luck with the minigame. And you can really combine tip number 5 and 6, because if you trigger the manual venting, you can do a nice roll to the side and after it, your weapon is again ready to fire. Of course, should you forget to vent your weapon in the heat of battle, you will get the minigame. If you hit the blue bar, you will get an instant cooldown, and if you hit the yellow bar, you get not only the cooldown, but also a limited time in which the weapon will not heat up again. Moving on to the next tip and the battle points. As a new player, you will quickly notice that you get for nearly every action during a match battle points, which you can turn in for special characters. A simple way to get them quickly is to equip the Bounty Hunter card. Maxed out, this card will give you a 20% bonus for everything, even dying. This card, combined with the regular use of your abilities, will give you a big advantage to every other player who doesn't use it. Should you play as the officer, buff immediately as many players as possible directly at the spawn location. Or as the specialist, use your binoculars to spot enemy players in the distance. That way you can get a very nice head start. Also very important to mention here is that playing the objective is a very good strategy to get many points. Not only will you get points for doing so, but also get additional points for killing enemies in the area and for ending the capture phase. Another tip how to earn many points is don't kill the small troopers, go for the big ones, the vehicles. The best class for this job is the heavy trooper. Not only has he the most health from all troopers, but also can unlock the powerful ion torpedo and drop the ion turret, which is highly effective against vehicles. The best spot to aim for is of course the rear or bottom area of any vehicle. There the armor plating is the weakest. When you finally earned enough battle points, you should consider tip number 9. Most players wait until they die and then they go for the hero. Don't do that. As soon as you reached the desired points, do a manual respawn and select the hero or villain you want, before somebody else does it. Also a little side note here. In the unit selection, you don't have to click on the unit and hit select. You can just double click on the picture. That way you don't waste any precious time, because everybody and their mother wants to play as the hero, so be fast. In my next tip, I'm switching quickly from the ground gameplay into space. Getting battle points and XP in Starfighter Assault can be difficult sometimes, but you can always get free points by attacking enemy turrets. So always when you're far away from your mission area and you see a nice little turret, get it in your crosshair and press the torpedo button twice. That way you fire the torpedo manual and get some nice points. But again, a tip for heavy players on the ground. If you deploy a turret at a bad location, or you want to move on and don't want to hurt its feelings by leaving it behind, you can always pick it up again. That way you don't have to wait for the cooldown and use it immediately again. Of course, alternative, you can just detonate it and hurt some enemies. A very general tip, something every shooter player should do in any game, is learning the layout of the map and keep an eye on the minimap. That way you don't get lost and you see where the enemy is. Especially the heroes and villains are clearly visible on the minimap. It's also good to know in which direction the map will go for the next phase, so you can already prepare. My next tip is about shields. As an enemy shields, don't freak out and just shoot blindly at the shield. Have a look out for his feet, sometimes you can shoot them. If the enemy hides behind a shield bubble, try to get close enough and stick your weapon into it. He won't like it. Of course, should you use a shield, think about those limitations and keep the enemy away, especially from your feet. Switching the tips to the technical side now, this version of Battlefront 2 has many different settings. For example, you don't like the mouse sensitivity while you're zooming or in a starfighter, you can change it and still have different settings for the trooper on the ground. Or you don't like the flight assistance for your starfighter, just turn it off. Also, if you're colorblind, the game offers a special settings even for that. So I really recommend you check out the settings, they're really amazing. One technical aspect I mentioned already at the beginning, the game has a bad matchmaking system. It isn't skill or even rank based, it's just completely random. So you will often play against players who not only are better, but also have unlocked everything. Sometimes this results in a slaughter, which is not only extremely frustrating, but also you can't achieve anything here. So my tip here, just drop the match and look for a new one before you deinstall this game. But moving on to a more positive tip, the camera in this game is very special, I think. Not only can you play in first and third person view, but you can also switch between a left and right shoulder view. A function you should use to your advantage. So before you go around a corner or an obstacle, adjust your camera, that way you can see the enemy much quicker. Moving the tips to the hero and villain side of the game, if you have a lightsaber, you can not only block force attacks and blaster fire, you can also aim the blaster shots directly back at the enemy. Just move your crosshair at the location you want to redirect the shots. A tip for good old Palpatine, most players will immediately notice that he doesn't use a lightsaber and so can't block any incoming fire or force attacks, but instead he has two very powerful hands, which he can use both at the same time. It's a very powerful attack, but also reduces his stamina very quickly, so be careful here. Talking about stamina, you should always have an eye on the stamina level, because as soon as it depletes, you can't attack, block or even jump. So the only option left is basically run, dodge and pray. Coming slowly to a close, here are just a few quick tips. One big limitation of all the heroes and villains is that they only want to use their own stuff, so they won't touch any special weapons or turrets on the map. Only the basic troopers can pick them up and use them. If you want to capture an object fast, you can play as either BB-8 or BB-9. Both droids capture faster than any other unit in the game. If you look around in the game menu, you will notice that the credits unlock different skins, towns and voice lines. To get them faster, here's my last tip of the day. Have a look at the achievement page, check out your dailies, so you can plan your next matches accordingly. And well, that's it for now. I know there are many more tips. The game has so many aspects to cover. If I have missed a very important one, please let me know in the comment section or join me on the next Noob Night. You surely know, if you enjoyed this video, be sure to give it a like and subscribe to the channel, so you stay tuned for more content like this. Until then, have a good time, enjoy the game. Captain Sidaris signing off.